Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Chad's Cards. Today we will be going over who to collect slash invest for the second base position. So, got a list of the rankings for the second baseman for this year, and honestly, it's a little bit of a garbage dumpster fire is kind of a strong word, but kind of a wasteland. So, over Major League history, only 20 second basemen have been inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. The last few have been Craig Biggio, Roberto Alomar, and Ryan Sandberg, and before that you had Joe Morgan and Rod Carew. So you can see maybe a player a decade is getting into that position, and you have players like Jeff Kent, who is the league leader, all-time league leader in home runs at second base. He's not in, so it's really going to be kind of difficult to try and pick out the name or two that's going to make it. So hopefully we can identify a little bit of value and who has the best shot. But there's probably better places for your money overall. So I've got this spreadsheet here, and really the bottom half, we can just kind of take them out of consideration right off the bat for a long-term investment. Again, the rules are there are no rules. No, I'm kidding. Of course there's rules. This is just the way I do it, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Obviously, collect what you like, and the most important thing is have fun. So I have fun when I buy somebody that doesn't drop to $0. So but I've got those. It happens. It happens. So the best way to stay relevant in Major League Baseball is to be a great player and get elected to the Hall of Fame. So Hall of Famers tend to hold their value over time. And it'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays out, going forward with all the numbered parallels and things of that nature. Maybe you could have Hall of very good players with a low numbered parallel do well. So who knows how that shakes out. But it really looks like the guys that have the Hall of Fame statistics, or at least are in the conversation year after year for getting inducted, are the ones that tend to hold their value, and the people that are Hall of very good or out of contention, their cards, there's no interest. The demand doesn't meet what they're trying to, doesn't meet the supply, and those prices just kind of drop way off. And so I don't want to see that happen, and it's going to, but more often than not, if we can be right, then we'll be all right here. So these bottom guys here, what we're looking at is, can you accumulate a certain amount of WAR? And roughly 60 is kind of the average for most positions. Second base and right field are actually some of the highest average WAR positions for Hall of Fame inductees. And so for second base, looking for that 60 number still. And can you get that by age 35? Okay, that's what I look for out of players, because at age 35, the numbers really start to tail off. These guys just start to fall off a cliff. So can you bank enough WAR by age 35 to be in that consideration? Maybe get an MVP, be on a team that's a little bit dynastic. However you want to look at it, but you got to do something kind of generational in one way or another to have that Hall consideration. So guys like Profar, and you can take this all the way down to Donovan Solano. If you look at their ages and the amount of WAR that they're going to need to average up until age 36 to hit that 60 number, Hall of Famers will have seasons, stretches, really 6-7 years, where they're putting up 6, 7, 8 WAR on an average basis. And what you're asking these guys to do is do that after their age 27, 28 peak. So that could be, I think that's a little bit insurmountable. So collect these guys if you want. And honestly, if you like Whit Merrifield and DJ LeMahieu and all that kind of stuff, well, not DJ LeMahieu, never mind, Moustakas, you could probably get some pretty interesting parallels that maybe you couldn't afford of some higher end guys that are more on a Hall of Fame track. So DJ LeMahieu, we'll talk about him in a minute here. So let's start with the guys that are kind of on track. And what we're looking for is something where you have to average, five-ish WAR, 4 or 5 WAR over a period of time to get to the Hall of Fame number here. So if you're doing that, again, Hall of Famers should be averaging that over a long period of time. Again, you'll have that 6 or 7 year run where you're getting 6, 7, 8, and then you're going to have 4 or 5 for a couple years, and then you're going to drop off a cliff here. So Jake Cronenworth, he just getting started here, had an interesting start. Doesn't have a rookie card available. If you pull a few base cards, great, good for you. It's something I'm probably not gonna go super hard after. Nick Solak, Nicky Lopez, guys like that. Mostly they're on track because of their age. Can they put up 6 WAR over 10 years? is basically what it comes down to get that 60 by age 35. So they should have, if they have strong peaks, then I think they'll be a stronger consideration. As of now, a little behind the eight ball, and something I'm not super interested in, but a player in that range that I am kind of interested in is Mr. Brandon Lau. So in 2019, he came on pretty strong for the Rays, 82 games. He hit 270, and a lot of that was from BABIP inflation, batting average and balls in play. So batting average and balls in play is calculated by taking strikeouts and home runs out of the equation. Those are balls that are not in play. And everything else, if you're getting, if you're hitting 377 on balls that are in play, you could say, oh, you're getting a little lucky. A lot of those balls are finding the grass. And conversely, if you have a 200 BABIP on balls in play, say, well, you're just hitting it two guys a lot, and you're getting a little bit unlucky. So these things tend to regress over maybe not in season, but from season to season. They kind of even themselves out. Some guys have a lot of speed, and they're higher BABIP guys. Some guys are lower BABIP because they're just knocking the ball out of the park and nothing else. And that's just kind of how it goes. So last year, Brandon Lau, 270 average, 377 BABIP. So we're looking for some regression, and what didn't happen was the regression part, at least in batting average. This year, he hit roughly 270, 269. His batting average on balls in play did drop as predicted. Went down to 309 for the BABIP, so that's a very sustainable number. So he might be settling in as a 270 hitter. Last year, he had 17 home runs. This year, in a little over half the games, he had 14 home runs. So if you're looking at a 270 guy with 30 home runs, this could be a pretty interesting guy. What I really like to see is his strikeouts went from a 35% rate last year to a 25% rate this year, and the walks went up. So he's really improving as a hitter overall. You wouldn't know that from the playoffs right now, but it's true. It's true. I wouldn't lie to you here. So I think that's super interesting. Now, his prices right now is 2019 Series 1 Topps card is $35, which compared to the rest of these guys, it seems a little bit high. But again, he's in the playoffs, and he's getting a little bit of a bump from that one. So if that sinks into that $25, $30 area, Brandon Lau is a player for the PSA 10 that I would be looking for. So I've picked up a few of his parallels and things of that nature. I'm not super interested in the PSA 10, but this is mostly for an apples to apples comparison. David Fletcher, Ryan McMahon, kind of the same deal here. Same age, but a little less WAR, but just a touch younger. So I don't know. Their cards are pretty cheap. Go ahead, take a look at it. Cavan Biggio is one that interests me. So he's 25 years old, compiled a little bit of WAR. Last year he came up and had a decent start to the season. As I'm looking at Craig Biggio, it's like, whoa, Cavan's doing a really great job here. Let me pull up. I'm on Fangraphs right now, so let's pull up Cavan here and get a little better idea. Craig, the pedigree is there. Craig Biggio, one of 4 second basemen to have like 3,000 hits. Kind of interesting. The bar is a little bit low for second baseman. 300 home runs, and there's only 4 guys out of the 20 that have 3,000 hits, and I think there's maybe a lot of defense in there or something. Maybe that's only why one a decade gets in. So Cavan Biggio last year, back on track here. 234 average with a 309 BABIP in 100 games. 16 home runs, 14 steals. This year, his strikeout rate declined a little bit, and his walk stayed about the same, around that 15% area. And he hit 250 with around the same BABIP. So the average went up, and he's hitting the ball at a decent rate. Over half the balls are at least medium contact, and doesn't have a lot of soft contact by any stretch here. So, but nearly 60 games this year. And the 8 home runs, the 6 home runs. So this is a guy that could be 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 270, 280 average or something like that at his peak. So the market is kind of pricing him in as not much. We're not expecting a lot out of him, and that certainly may be the case. But if he could have longevity, what if he plays at 12 years at a decent clip and then regresses for the last 3 or something like that? Who knows? So it's one to watch. I just have a bias. I think that the Blue Jays are going to be a good team overall for a while, and that could be one of the key contributors for that team. But his prices right now are fair. They're in that speculation thing, so that speculation area here. So again, he's young enough where he's not completely out of it. So Keston Hiura, this was one of my 2 favorite players last year. In the 2019 series update series here. So he's gotten off to an interesting start here. So he came up last year and played about half a season for the Brewers. He had a 303 average with a 400 BABIP, and so we're looking for some pretty significant regression off of that. And well, this year we got it. The BABIP dropped to 273, and his average dropped to 212 overall. So his isolated power dropped as well. And his strikeouts went from 30% last year up to 35% this year. Not a lot of walks. And his home runs. Actually this year he was on pace for probably a little over 20 or something like that. Last year he had 19. So, last year he was raking. He was on track for 35 home run season like everybody else. And this year it probably would have been something closer to high 20s or something like that. But again, a lot of swing and miss. So he really needs to get that under control. It is concerning. I'd like to see that go the other direction. But he's young enough that he can figure it out. He's got the skill set. He was a good hitter, great hitter in college, to be a number one pick. And so for $20, the market's saying, we're not thinking too much of you here. And I'm not giving up on him yet. And that's pretty cheap entertainment. So these market prices, they're usually, they know something here. So they're discounting Biggio and Hira, and we'll see who's right over time here. So Ketel Marte. Let me sift through the numbers of Martes in the database here. So, Kettle, he came up a few years ago as rookie card, at least as 2016. He started in 2015 with the Mariners, and he's actually put up a pretty interesting couple of seasons. 2019 was by far his best season. So he had a 329 average. He had 32 home runs. He doesn't strike out a ton. Doesn't walk a ton by any stretch here. So we'll kind of see how he turns out. But that was a monster season last year with 7.1 WAR. And this is what really gave him a boost. 26-year-old putting up that kind of a season. And he's been doing this since he's 23, so he's got enough of a head start. But that if he can start putting up some more 5 or 6 WAR seasons and really kind of stay on that track, he needs to average 5 over the next decade or so. And he's worth watching. Because he can maybe do that, and the market is pricing him kind of in that Brandon Lau area where it's like, there's some skill set there. You're not wildly off the track. That's at least interesting, and it's probably pretty fair. So sorry, Marte is the $40 version. So he's a little bit more of a track record. So these guys, so that's where that premium comes in, but probably a fair price overall. Gavin Lux, moving on to Gavin Lux. 23 years old, no WAR, $35, which is probably elevated, largely due to going to World Series. That'll happen. So not a card that I would be super interested in here. If he has a monster playoff, it could go up even further. And I would expect that price to fall unless he does something next year. Need to see something out of him next year. Right now, he's on track because of his age for the most part here. So Luis Arraez, 23 years old. He's compiled a couple of WAR. Last year, he had a really nice season when he hit like 340 or something like that for my Twins. But again, this this low level of average WAR to age 35 is mostly a function of being young, and so the market knows that as well. $20. So that's kind of your price for guys that are really, they got a lot of questions about them for one reason or another. $20 is kind of the number, $25. And so, Ketel Marte, maybe, again, monster season last year, so he gets a little bit more cred. Gavin Lux should probably be in this area, but for the playoff appearance here. So now we get into where it's a little bit interesting. And so Jose Altuve is on track. Wildly on track here. So is this a guy that for the next 5 years can average a little over 4 WAR? And he certainly can. I mean, if you look at what he's been doing since 2014, 5.2, 4.4, 6.8, 7.6 in 2017. That was his MVP year. 4.9, 3.5 this year. Not so much. I don't know what changed between last year and this year. Weird. Knock on a garbage can. He can, he can get his form back here. So. But career 311 hitter, 133 home runs. He's on track with the WAR, and so it's kind of a tough case here because how are people gonna view him with the cheating scandal and all that kind of stuff? So he is on track. He'll be in the conversation, and his price reflects that, and maybe even a little bit low. If you look at guys that did the first base tracker, guys like Paul Goldschmidt and things of that nature, which are sort of on track. Kind of he's a couple years older and he's got to see more. But this is like a Freddie Freeman track right here. Age 30 with 35 WAR. I think Freddie's maybe a year older, but he's got like 38 WAR or something like that. At least on the same track, he's got an MVP as well. And so Freddie Freeman, a couple $100 card. So Altuve should maybe be more. And these are off of eBay, completed listing, so I didn't see any of these guys on card ladder. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But I would say Jose Altuve is probably likely undervalued and someone to maybe look at. So bonus card here is Mr. Chase Utley. So I should throw in somebody that, so you get an idea of what a Hall of Famer looks like. And retired a couple of years ago, and just a monster. So what some people look for the Hall of Fame is not your overall WAR as much, in conjunction with like a certain period. Did you put together a monster stretch? Because to do it over a career like Mike Trout is pretty unrealistic. But did you put together 6-7 years of a monster stretch? And Chase Utley did that. Debuted with the Phillies in 2003, starting in 2005. He had WAR seasons, up through 2009, 7.2, 7.2, 7.7, and 8.2, 8.2, just a monster. I mean, I remember fantasy drafts back in the day where he was the first second baseman off the board. It wasn't even close. And then he had 5.4, 2s, 3s, and he kind of dropped off a little bit as does happen. And then finished up his career with the Dodgers. So career 275 hitter, 259 home runs, 62 WAR. There's going to be a case for him. We'll see what happens in a couple of years, but they may feel the need to put a second baseman in the Hall because they haven't done it since Biggio. And again, if you're only getting one per decade, maybe Chase Utley is that guy. So, but as long as he's in the conversation, he's gonna have demand around his card. And you can see that his 2001 Bowman, so he debuted in 2003. I didn't see a whole lot for his Topps card right there. I saw a heck of a lot of Bowman, so we'll go with that one. But we're sitting at a $165 card right now, and perhaps it should be a little bit higher. He's out of sight, out of mind. I get it. But in a couple of years, when he gets back in the conversation for the Hall of Fame, perhaps this card starts to rise. Maybe there's a Topps version that's better. I guess I could have done more research for you guys. I just didn't see anything upon first look, but this could be an undervalued card overall here. So these three right here, these guys that are definitely on the path are the most interesting. As is, I think we're going to see that's the case. For a lot of these things, if you're on the path, you're going to do really well, and if you're off the path, and that's why I say try and buy the Hall of Famers. Speculate, but speculate cheap. DJ LeMahieu, $70 is being priced like a Jose Altuve, and he's 32 years old and needs to average 10 more over the next few years to be on that track. It's like, why are those why are those equal? So I would expect DJ to come back down to earth a little bit. Probably not the player to speculate on. So we just want to put this into a little bit of context. So finish up with Mr. Robinson Cano, another player that just had an awesome run, and he was on a dynastic team with the Yankees, and one of the best second basemen in baseball. So 6 WARs, 5, 7, 6, another 6 in 2016 with the Mariners. Actually had a pretty good season this year, but the last few you start to see that age 35 drop off. So overall, over his career, 300 batting average, 334 home runs, which would be the number one player in terms of home runs in the Hall of Fame. Again, Jeff Kent had more, I believe, but for $100 for his 2003, I think is his tops traded. Seems to be pretty light. Now the question with Cano is, in 2018 he had some concerns with PEDs, and so I think this is what may be holding his price back. So overall, these bottom half guys probably not worth speculating or investing on, but if you like them, absolutely collect them. Again, you can get some pretty cool stuff for cheap. I would say here's your speculation guys for the most part, and I think that Lux is a little rich at this point here. Ketel Marte is probably fair-ish, but he needs to really kind of get back on track and show that 2019 wasn't an aberration. Fletcher and McMahon, I mean, you can get those guys for nothing for the most part here. But I do like I like Brandon Lau probably, and Ketel Marte probably the most out of these guys here. And these top three, Hall of Fame track, and maybe only one or two of them gets in. Again, there's issues with these guys, and Utley's kind of borderline or whatever, but he should get some consideration. But all of them are probably relatively cheap. Again, there's reasons for these guys to be cheap. Chase Utley, I think that's going to be the most interesting. He's a little out of sight, out of mind right now. But in a couple of years, maybe that is not the case. So anyways, there's your second baseman for you. A real wild bunch here. Ton of fun. They're great at parties. I know that coming down the pike when the third baseman and the outfielder is just going to get it's going to get exciting. But you got to do your homework on this kind of stuff and know what your budget parameters and all that kind of stuff is. So appreciate you tuning in, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thank you.